Hi, and welcome to day 2. I'm so excited for you to continue this journey. I'm sure you loved that ball in the outer hips yesterday and maybe got some good information from that practice. So today we're going to continue with a little bit of anatomy, deeper anatomy understanding to help you in your journey for the long haul. So that when you start feeling a little bit of iliotibial band pain stuff coming up, you can know what you need to do to take care of it like that. And really going further, being able to really get rid of pain from its source, we need to understand really opposing muscle groups and how they work together and opposite each other, and how dysfunctional patterns in opposing muscle groups, in this case today, the quadriceps and the hamstrings muscles, can lead to pain. So we've already discussed that the iliotibial band pain that you are experiencing may be coming from a quadricep muscle that lives deep to the iliotibial band, called the vastus lateralis. Now, it's one of the 4 quadriceps muscles. The quads straighten the knee, so they lift the leg, straighten the knee, okay? The hamstrings are in the back of the thigh, closing that knee, or bending the knee. So you have the quad straightening, the hamstrings bending. These muscle groups very easily get out of balance depending on how much movement you're doing, what kinds of movement you're doing, whether or not you're sitting for long periods of time. So often people will come in and they'll have ITB pain, knee pain, whatever, quad issues, quad-related issues. But if you're not addressing the hamstrings, your quad issues aren't going to get better, okay? So it's helpful to start your release work, your self-trigger point release, your opening work, in the hamstrings first. And here is why. If you sit, right, everybody, if you sit, and if you sit not in perfect exemplary posture 100% of the time, if you're slouching ever, then that slouch, that tuck under, is going to shorten and tighten the hamstrings. I'm going to demonstrate that from the side. If you're sitting, and then you eventually sit back on the couch, or maybe you drive in this position, or maybe you slouch a little bit and you're working on a small device. Maybe you're texting and you're rounding forward. All of that rounding tucks the pelvis under, and the hamstrings come up and attach to the bottom of the pelvis in the back, and they pull it down. Over time, those hamstrings get short and stuck, and they keep the pelvis pulled down in a tuck, which pulls on the quads. That constant pull on the quads can make the quads go, oh, I'm going to tense up. I'm going to try to balance this tension out so that the hamstrings aren't always pulling on me. But eventually, over time, the quads can lose the battle if you're spending a lot of time sitting, or if you stand with your pelvis thrust under. We're going to have a whole big talk about posture in a little bit. But just to understand this piece with the relationship of the hamstrings to the quads, we're just talking about sitting right now. So sitting, pelvis tucks under, or standing with the pelvis tucked under, it's going to pull on the quads constantly, and it's going to make them kind of want to contract to resist that pull. So even though it might be a quad muscle, maybe, right, that's causing your iliotibial band pain, it might be that you need to begin your release work in the hamstrings. So in today's practice, you're going to learn a really quick release of the hamstrings, and then you're going to work down that vastus lateralis, that one quad. And then further down in our class together, you're going to learn a longer, more complete way to release the hamstrings, and a longer, more complete way to release all of the quads, because for the long run, you're going to want to treat all of the muscles in those 2 groups and keep them in balance together, or you will, as you go on, start to have kind of some funny knee things, maybe back of the knee pain, maybe other issues relative to those 2 muscle groups being out of balance. So quads and hamstrings, oppose each other. If one is pulled short, the other group is necessarily pulled long. Muscles hate to be pulled long all the time, so they begin to contract to try to pull things back more into balance, and then your muscles get stuck in a tug of war. So grab a ball, get on those hamstrings, check out the next video. It's just a quick release of the hamstrings on a chair. It's a great thing to do while you're at work. And then you can do a little bit of a very sweet, gentler release along the iliotibial band to release actually that vastus lateralis muscle below or deep to the iliotibial band. Enjoy your practices today. Do those movement practices, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. This movement break is leg swings, and we're helping to hydrate the hip joint. You can just place your hand on a chair or on the wall or on a desk. You can not use it if you don't need it, and that's going to help build even more strength. Right now we're just kind of hydrating the hip flexors, hip extensors, quads and hamstrings. We get a little bend of the knee at the back. I'm just going to keep going for about 10 more seconds on this side, and then I'm going to switch sides. So just getting things moving, get a little opening in the back. So now we're going to switch sides. I'm going to face the other way. So you can see that little bend of the knee in the back. Trying not to lean on that chair, but just kind of using it there to steady yourself. And take a couple more breaths here. Leg swings. So helpful if you're sitting. It's a great one to do even on road trips when you stop at the rest area. Just 2 more times. 2, 1. Great. That's leg swings, movement break. We're going to work in the vastus lateralis muscle. We're going to do it at the wall because, as I explained before, it's so much sweeter and easier. Now, there's those 3 areas in vastus lateralis that hold tension real specifically, and then the upper 2 sections can cause that iliotibial band pain. So I'm just going to show you where the knee part is. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we're going to focus on those areas that do cause radiating pain up and down the iliotibial band. So grab that larger myofoam ball and then find the top of your femur, which is just a bony nub right below your pelvis. Okay, it's kind of just in line with the top of the groin. So if you follow the crease of your groin around, it's right about there, right? Maybe just a little lower. And then you're going to put the ball below that. If you bring the ball to the wall and it's up too high, it's just going to feel like you're pushing on bone. You want it to feel a little bit more, a little bit softer, okay? So we're going to stand up pretty tall in this first part and just let our bodies sink into the wall. And then just a little tiny twisting so that you can kind of feel perhaps the edges of the iliotibial band. And then what you'll notice is that really kind of spicy spot right through the iliotibial band, which is vastus lateralis, trigger point number 1, right there at the top. So if you need more pressure, you can now slide the ball and your leg down, step that outside leg out. You can use that leg to push off and add pressure. But I recommend that you take it kind of easy in the beginning. So we've taken a couple breaths here. Now we're going to move that ball down a little bit, down a couple inches, and really start turning. Finding the edges of iliotibial band. What you'll notice is that in this second area, I'm almost halfway down to the knee already, and toward the back, very tender spot. So if you turn about 45 degrees away from the wall, sink your body and you can push off that back leg, so it's pushing the tissue into that wall. Just take a couple breaths there. If you didn't quite find anything interesting, you can move the ball up toward the pelvis or down toward the feet to just explore and find a special spot. And this ball is so perfect for this practice. It just really, I've tried a lot of things and this ball is so good. And then now we're going right through the iliotibial band, a little bit more dead on, a little bit more perpendicular to the wall. And then you can go up and down a little bit from there. Little tiny adjustment of the ball. I'm going to get closer so that you can see that. We can just do a little tiny adjustment of the wall and then down, okay? Little tiny adjustment of the wall. Great. And you might find 3 or 4 tender spots here. Try to get real specific and what will happen is that it's going to start toning down from feeling like one big gripping section to more specific points. That's when you know you've really gotten the healing going in this area, and you can isolate very specific points instead of everything just feeling like it's tender. Okay. So now after we've spent some time here, and this is it, we just roll, we find, we pause, bring a little nurturing and support to the area, and then move on. So that second section, just exploring up and down, pay a little attention to the very back of the vastus lateralis iliotibial band area. And then let me just make sure you see this. Notice here's my knee joint. Here is the ball right at the knee joint. Do not do that. Keep it up above a little bit, just a little tiny bit above that knee joint. You don't really want to ever push the balls right into joints. So you want to stay a little bit above that knee joint. And then you can turn your body slightly forward and back. And find a little tender area in there. Keep the knee a little bent. Play with the pressure with the outside leg. You can wiggle your hips a little bit on there. I found a little spot slightly to the front here. So I'm going to take a couple of breaths there. All right, yeah. Oh, great. So now we're just gonna, now that's a quad, so our stretch is gonna be a quad stretch, and a quad stretch would be to bend the knee, grab the top of the foot, push the foot into the hand. Notice my knees kind of drop into alignment here. Push the foot into the hand, and then pull the heel back to the bum. I'm not letting that collapse and pull it forward. I'm always giving a little bit of resistance as if I'm going to straighten my leg. And if it's comfortable for you, you can just bring that leg right to the wall and kind of lean back on it. So a little quad stretch. Because that vastus lateralis is a quad, bending the knee completely is going to stretch that muscle. So now we're going to do the other side. We're going to find the greater trochanter, the top of the pelvis. We're going to go just below it, right? Here we bring it to the wall. Step that other foot back a little. Explore. And then sink in. I already found a tender spot. I know where these spots live. It lives right below that greater trochanter of the femur, or the top of the femur. And then just sink in right there. Here's a little tender spot. And take a couple deep breaths. Now I'm going to move that ball down a little bit more into the midway, halfway between the pelvis and the knee. Stepping my outer leg out, bending that inside knee, and just turning the body. So that twisting, kind of rolling along the iliotibial band. I don't want to bend the knee too much, right? I just want to keep a little bend, little softness. There we go. And sink right into it. Couple of breaths, finding tender spots. Just keep moving that around. You don't find a tender spot right away, just go down a little bit, find another one. Check another spot. Now we're also going to turn the body away. I know mine sits a little bit higher, so I'm going to go right, bump right up into that iliotibial band, find the tender spot right behind it. So actually what I'm doing with this is I'm kind of pushing the iliotibial band forward, away a little bit, and to get to that vastus lateralis below it. And I'm right at the back section, right where the hamstrings and the quads meet. Tender. All right. And then I move, I'm checking. Yeah, if you find a tender spot, you just keep working your way down. Find a little tender spot. Take a couple of deep breaths there. And then after 3 or 4 or 5 little spots, you go just a couple inches above the knee joint, slightly to the front, through the IT band, slightly to the front, checking. And just seeing if you have a spot, if you find 1 or 2 spots, same kind of thing, sinking in right there. I can feel that. I can feel that radiating down to my outer knee. And pausing, taking a couple breaths. Make a little adjustment. Is there a spot there? Is it very slightly higher? Find a spot, sink in. Another couple of big breaths. All right. Do a little bit of kicks like bend and straighten. And then we're going to bring that quad into a stretch. Grab the top of the foot. Push the foot back into the hand. Stand up nice and tall. Pull that heel into the bum. And I'm pushing back. I'm not collapsing. I'm just keep a little bit of pressure back. And then we're going to release that leg. Do a little bit of marching side to side. And that's it. That's releasing vastus lateralis at the wall.